Hi everyone, it's Kasia from Tarot Map, and this is another installment in Inspired Tarot Map. And today my guest is Lisa Estabrook. Hi Lisa.
Hello, Tasia.
It's so nice to have you on as a guest that I was actually anticipating for a while. Like I only reached out to you recently, but I have been like loving, using your deck for a long time. This is now, Lisa is the creator of the Soulflowers or Soulflower Oracle, and there was an indie version. Then you got picked up, and it was mass produced, mass published, which is lovely because everybody can access it, independent if you're in the States or
Right,
not.
right, for about half the cost of what it was costing me to self-publish it. So yeah,
Yeah.
had both the book and the deck that I was doing, and it's a huge it's a huge printing bill for one person to do. And
Yeah. And I think
self-publishing,
that's why a lot of people, do the Kickstarter or something to help
yeah,
themselves to gather the funds to actually, even when the
yeah,
deck is ready, to actually publish it because it's very
I was
expensive.
yeah, I was far too lazy to do
So
that.
how did it happen that they picked you up? Did they actually like contact you? How does it work?
The universe just planted those seeds and those breadcrumbs, and I slowly followed it. So it's actually I decided to get a sales representative on the East Coast here, and he represents a handful of earth-based natural brands, if you like, and he also represents Inner Traditions, which
Ah,
is the publisher. And so he gave me a name, and I just sort of cold, I kind of just reached out because I didn't have a publisher or anything. I didn't have an agent actually
yeah.
or anything like that. But I had been receiving the slow pushes of the universe to let it go for some time. And then so finally I did send a sample to them, and the Inner Tradition said, well, not for us, but Findhorn, which is one of our imprints,
Ah,
might like it. And of course, Findhorn is the sort of global center for plant spirits. And so I sent the editor there a deck, and she was really open and receptive, and it just sort of happened. And I laugh though, because Dandelion is on the cover, right? And it was like letting go of a child, like releasing them out into the world. And so it took me a good year and a half to just allow it, to let go, really. And so, Dandelion is one of my closest allies there, and that's the
yeah.
medicine that, her, to summarize her in a single word, the soul quality is release, about letting go. And I think that's what we're all doing. I think Dandelion is one of those power master teachers for our time, and Dandelion grows everywhere, and she's showing up for us all. But anyway, that was the sort of nutshell version of that
Yeah.
story. And I couldn't be more grateful for Findhorn and my editor there and Inner Traditions. I mean, just incredible stewards of the work. And they actually even allowed me to really have control of and there's the control, right, of the design of the
Yeah.
next. And then they had their own in-house designer, but they let me tweak the cards how I wanted. And so it was like a process of letting go of it and letting them kind of have their vision, and then kind of, yeah, they really honored mine. And so that was a big part of it. So as
And that's really
I
wonderful, right? Because often
yeah,
I think like I would be probably afraid if I created something to totally not have any control over how it looks, what borders or not borders it has, and so on, right?
yeah, exactly. Well, they were amazing because they kind of did a bit of a redesign of it. And the first version, I said, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like me. And they really listened. They really
Yeah.
listened, because there's so much of my own essence and my own energy that's in that deck, and that I wanted to share. And they really listened. And I think that's, well, that to me was the biggest thing, just letting them take it, was that they would listen and honor the creation as it was intended. And so yeah, because it was originally self-published in 2016. Well, you have both decks. I mean, they
Yeah, I
really,
actually, on me, because I'm not at home, I have that indie deck. I kind of
yes,
like, I will keep the indie anyway, because I quite like that it doesn't have all this white. But actually what I wanted to say is that my friend said, "Oh my God, I'm so jealous that you've got the indie one." And I said, "You know what? Actually, I have two to compare with, and they are nearly the same. They only have lighter, I mean, it's maybe even a bit easier to read what's on the
Yes.
cards. I
Yeah.
just have used mine for a while, so, I just kept the indie for myself, and I'm going to gift probably the mass-produced deck without the book, because that's why I bought the other one, because I wanted the booklet.
Yeah.
And yeah, but both decks are really great, and actually they're nearly the same, except for this lighter color on the
Yeah,
bottom.
they wanted the legibility to be a bit better.
Yeah.
But
So for
they,
anybody who's listening and thinks, "Oh, I want indie," like, it's seriously not a big difference. I don't even know, is this indie still available, or
no, it's gone.
no?
It's gone. It's all done. I have
Yeah.
a few, I have maybe 6 in my cupboard here for posterity. Maybe
Yeah.
for my
But
grandkids, maybe.
yeah, exactly. But I think for people, like, you don't have to feel like you missed out on something, because they're really
Oh,
similar. There's the same backs. It looks the same. Everything is like nearly the same. The paper is similar. They really, really
they
well
really did a
produced.
good
Really well
job.
done.
Yeah, they really did a good job. And I think the fancy box that they put it in is actually quite nice too.
It's very nice. It's very nice.
Yes.
Yeah, I like it.
I think of it like my baby grew up, it's in which it really is. It's like and I was
Yeah.
letting go of my oldest was going off to college right around when I was starting to let this go. Now my second is heading off to college this fall, and it really just felt like a maturing of the deck. It just sort of grew up, and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So,
I pulled a card before our conversation, and
as
echinacea came up about consciousness
Mhm.
and about helping us to break up and release outdated personal stories, emotions, attachments, something that holds us back from positive growth. And it's about self realization and awareness. And before we go maybe deeper into the deck itself, I wanted to ask you, Lisa, about like your herbal entry story. Like, why plants, why flowers? Like, how did it even, was it always on your table that you were like connected, you feel connected, felt connection to the plants?
Oh
And how
yeah,
did it become your
always.
life, kind of?
Well, I think we're all in relationship with plants. I just didn't realize the extent to which I was, or to which they were trying to get my attention, put it that way. But I think we're all in relationship with the flowers and with the plants. When I was in my early 20s and I just graduated college and I was sort of setting off on my path, I, your hobbies, the things that bring you joy, you know, those are the things that really open your heart and connect your heart. And it's always been flowers for me. So I didn't like pursue it as a my purpose, if you like, in the world, but it was always my hobby. And it was always like, my parents used to take me to antique stores as a child. It was absolutely, torture. But going to the nurseries and seeing all the flowers, I love it. I loved it. And I grew up in North London. It wasn't exactly out in the wild, but we grew up that, where I grew up in North London, it was part of the green belt. So which is an area where you cannot cut down trees, you can't build new buildings. It's intentionally left as it
Protected.
was at the, yeah, protected. So I had a field behind our house, and, there's plenty of wildlife and so forth. And a lot of people say, well, I was just out there in my own little world. It wasn't really the case. And I never really liked gardening either, because my parents would tell me, you have to rake, you have to do this one. So it was just always there in my awareness. And when I moved to where I am now in Maine, that's when I actually, and I was, I've always been interested in wellness and health and spirituality. These are all the things that have opened my heart and that really resonate with me. And so I started to take local classes, like weekend retreats with a local herbalist, and read books about, and I was just caring for myself, learning to care for myself. And I've written extensively about, I've suffered with headaches, chronic headaches my whole life. And then that started in my early teens, mid-teens. And, so I think like part of it was me searching for help in that respect, because I wasn't really getting much help in the allopathic world, and that route, other than the, okay, here's some painkillers. You
Yeah.
know?
Which
Um,
sometimes helps, but not long term when
well, it
it
did.
was
It
chronic,
certainly did.
right?
It
Yeah.
certainly did help. And I have no, there's no judgment around them. And we
Yeah.
need, no judgment around the allopathic world, but it really helped, like all of the pieces of our lives go to help us bring forth this work that we have, this, your unique essence that we have to bring to the world. And so that, I consider the headaches not as a curse, but as an integral part of my own journey. It's a part of the soil of my own life. And so, and it led me to back to the plants in a way, and back to I'd say a more conscious relationship with the plants. And so I've, in my reading material of choice is always like gardening magazines. It's I don't really read a lot of fiction. It's always been, herbal manuals and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So that was really where my medicinal herbal kind of understanding came through. And I actually worked for a time with Deb Sewell at Avena Botanicals. That's where I took the community herbalist classes. And I just loved being there. I loved being in the gardens. It just connected, opened my heart in ways that I couldn't even express or articulate then. And she had an opening for a medicine maker was the title, and really a tincture maker. And so this is way back when 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago. And I would go and work 3 days a week there. It was all women that worked there. It was really, and I would go and I would just make the salves and make the, and I had recipes, but it was really intuitive, and gosh, I loved it. I really loved it.
I would love that job.
Yeah. And it
And you
turned
could
out
learn also probably so much because there was probably exchange of knowledge going on between like what's
absolutely, absolutely. And by trade, if you like, by training, I'm actually like a graphic designer. That's what I did in school. Marketing and graphic design was my degree in college. And I had been working at a graphic design office, but it didn't fuel me. It didn't feel, and I was always trying to find ways to reduce my hours and how can you sit at a computer and be creative for 8 hours a day? I couldn't do it. And so I would, move it to part-time and then go and pursue that which gave me so much joy, that felt great. And, and then, life would present itself and I would go back into fear. I'd go back into scarcity, all these stories that now seem like I understand them, I see them. And then I didn't, and I would go back and I ended up having my own graphic design studio. I, started working for myself, and saying that sort of thing. It's sort of interesting how we separate our heart's passion and our heart's joy with our work in the world. And it was the plants absolutely that just helped me to understand that my joy, my heart's work in the world is what I'm here to do. And it can look like many things. It can look like being a good mom and mothering my kids, and that brings me joy. That's what I'm here to do. It can look like, creating some art and working on these cards. It can look like writing and expressing myself in that way, and all of the above, or anything. It's always been my work in the world has always been about growing myself, understanding myself more and more and more. And then it's really interesting to see what grows from that, the Soulflower deck, this Soulflower business, and now, Soulflower, like, mentoring or speaking my truth. And that's a whole nother level of having to step into like the next level of your expression and your growth. And so it's really fascinating how I feel on so many levels like I'm unsupported and free falling in my life, and yet the plants have always been there guiding me and supporting me and helping me step into the next version and the next version and the next version of myself, and showing me what it means to grow and show up as who I am, and even to help me realize who the hell I am, and just all of that.
Yeah. I think
It's
it's so important what you said about yeah, this type of like hobbies or whatever opens our heart, and when you actually pursue it, like, and we often mix it up with, we need to make money from it. Sometimes it's not even, I mean, not always. I had a huge like, what am I here to do story going on with me, because I've gone Chiron, the wounded healer, right on my vocation point, and it really played out for me, like, to the textbook. I don't know what I'm here to do. I have so many talents, but nothing is really like, I can't make money from what I like, because I like astrology and tarot and plants and shit. And I'm in this country when this is not acceptable, and I like hula hoop, and you know, and only when I actually started following this, and money was never my motivation. My
Mhm.
motivation was always, I love to do it. Like, I cannot not do it. Let's see what's
Yes,
going to happen
yes,
with it.
yes,
And
yes.
it was always like openings. And I'm not saying it's easy, because, my hula hoop business didn't last longer than a year and whatever, but it was such a great adventure. It was so much fun until now, when I meet people whom I taught like hoop dance, they're like, oh, that was it was great. And I'm not regretting it, but some things stick longer, like, the plants talk, or like, you have this connection. And yes, as you say, first you create maybe a deck, and then you have, maybe people want more, like, how can you teach us about this,
Well,
because it's
yeah.
important.
Yeah, the minute we start to try to intellectualize it and put a structure around it, that becomes this prison really, really quickly. I
Yeah.
like to say, I don't know what I experienced, and everything that I share is from my own experience. I'm no expert in anything other than my own life, and that's debatable. You know?
And also,
But
there are different types of people, right? So yeah.
right, right. We're all bio-individual. We're all
Yeah.
diverse, and we have so many different experiences. But for me, when my children were young, I really became hyper aware of this idea of, and I'm still working through this. My children are now like in college or late high school.
Yeah.
You know, this idea that we have to do this, this, and this to be successful, happy people. And as a parent, I don't want to say a helicopter parent or controlling. That's not what I was, but I was very much trying to make sure that we hit all our bases and make sure that you do this, this, and this, so that I know that you're going to have the tools that you need to navigate a successful life. And boy, did my kids push back in each of their own ways. And they're all three individual, very individual, and each in their own ways, they pushed back because they have, like my son, he would read all night long. He would be up all night, and he's done this frequently since he was very small. And then I'd be like, well, now you have to go to school or you have to do this. And he would be like, I can't do that. And I'd have to let go. I'd have to let go of him doing it, and he'd say, well, why is it wrong that I'm active at night? Just because you're not active at night, because I'm an early bird and I go to sleep at 7 at night, why is it that it's not okay for me? And he would ask me these questions. And I'm like, well, actually, I guess those are really good questions. And it helps me to understand that what is true for me is not necessarily true for another. And we have this overarching culture that is trying to like squish us all into the same mold, teach us the same things in school. We all have to do the same subjects. And like you said, we're all, students of everything, masters of nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, what really, my mother is an early childhood teacher. So here's like how our stories inform us. My mother is an early childhood teacher, and she was always like dealing with more and more legislation about how to educate the kids. Well, now you have to teach them their alphabet at 4 years old and all this sort of thing. She'd be like, no, in this space we play. That's how we do it. We play. We find what we pursue what our curiosity is leading us to do. And that my God, this is what we're learning how to, this is what we're remembering as adults. And we take on so much suffering around, what we feel, all the shoulds and woulds and coulds and have tos, all these, I call it adulting things that we have to do. And there's so much suffering in all of that. And
Yeah.
I don't know, the plants are always guiding me to figure out what brings me joy, what feels playful, and follow that. And I really don't like to play. I don't like to play, but my play is being in the garden and creating and working in the garden and enjoying these flowers. That is play. So the play is when the time stops. That moment when time stops and you're just enjoying yourself. And incidentally, that was when my headaches would stop. Because I'm in the house, I've got to make dinner, I've got to make sure my kids have all this, da, 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 da. My head's killing me. And I would go out into the garden and just be doing some weeding or doing what I was doing, and hands in the dirt, and my headache would stop. I'm like, what is this? What is this? It took me a long time.
What are you showing me, right? Like,
right, you're showing me. And it took me a long time to trust my body, to trust my thoughts and my feelings around all of this. It's ongoing. It's still unfolding and still, still, yes. I mean, that's what life is. Yeah, exactly. There's no finish line of like getting it all and understanding, even though that's what, we're told, right?
Yeah, sometimes I'm thinking, oh my God, if we were, I don't know, sorted.
Yes.
So bloody, like, what do we do? It's so boring.
I know, right. And so homogenized. And so we're so, and the flowers are always helping me to see myself as a flower, and that was a huge leap for a while, but now I feel it. I really feel it. And what nourishes me is unique, and where I'm growing is unique. And all the stories of my life and all my experiences, that's the soil that has, fertilized my expression in this lifetime. And that's unique to everybody. And
it's such a beautiful metaphor. I love it. So from the deck of cards, would you say is dandelion your guide?
Yes, I mean, probably one of my single biggest allies, but that's not the only one. I mean, I hate to say, I've got favorites,
Yeah, I know, but what would they be if you had to choose a couple of them?
Well, and that's so human too, because our minds like to judge everything. So if I say that I have a favorite, that I'm hurting
the other ones.
Daffodil's feelings is just so preposterous. It really is.
The daffodil is going, chill out, Lisa, it's fine.
Yeah, totally. And and I am a serious person. I said I don't like to play. I am serious. I overthink everything. Maybe that's another reason why my head hurts, because I'm always trying to see every aspect of things. And so, there's daffodil, and I'm working with daffodil this moon cycle. So I work the way I'm working with these flowers now. I mean, the creation of the deck was my healing journey. It was my remembering journey. And when I say healing, it's not like the curing of my headache or some sort of, it's a remembering that I am whole, that I am just exactly where I'm meant to be, and perfectly imperfect, a divine expression, all of those things. That's what healing means to me.
With a headache or not, right?
Headache or not, and my headaches continue to be my teacher. Yes. And as earth, and is remembering myself as earth, and that I'm fully divine and fully human at the same time. And this is what the flowers are always teaching me, and the trees and nature and the rocks and life is teaching me, helping me to remember, actually, is the better way of it.
But, so tell me about the deck, how you created it, because there is how many cards?
44. Yeah. So all of the flowers grow in my gardens or the woods around my house, all of them. Many of them I've been in relationship with for a long time. I've started gardens wherever I live. This house that I'm in now, I've been in 12 years, and it's the first time that I've always moved like every 3 or 4 years. So I'll make a garden and I don't get to see it mature, or I don't get to work with it fully. And so the flowers that were in the garden and in the woods around my house are the ones that are in the deck. And now there's many, many more than 44 flowers in my gardens or the woods around my house. But those are the ones that I'm most in relationship with. And some of the ones in the deck were completely new to me in this process. So I'd say probably around 2012, I had my midlife, like I'm on my knees, I'm in pain every single day. I could not barely function, it's maybe a classic midlife crisis. I was in my early 40s. I'm like, I've got 3 kids. I've got so much stress. I've got so much responsibilities on me. I have everything. I've done everything that I was supposed to do in my life. Why aren't I happy? Why aren't I healthy? Blah, 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 blah. All those things. It was like my midlife crisis. And that's where I really started to feel into what is it that I'm forgetting, what am I not noticing? And at that point, I was inspired to get my paints out again. I had not had my paints out again since college, and I had done some illustration work as part of my graphic design degree, but I had not really created since then or shortly thereafter. And so what came out was my gardens, was the flowers. That's what came out as I was sketching and drawing and painting and doing my own thing. And I started to realize very slowly that as I was working with each flower, I was in relationship with it. I was like directly in relationship with it, as you would be if you were like eating a salad or buying a bouquet of your favorite flowers. I realized that I was in conversation with this flower. And then I realized that what was happening in my life was not separate from that. And so each flower, as I was painting and journeying with it and drawing or sketching, it was the medicine. It was stepping forward for what was happening in my life at that time.
So here's my question, like, how
Yeah.
did the step, was it like intuitively you would, like?
Yes, it was intuitively. I mean, it's like, okay, so here's the dandelion, the classic dandelion story. And I've shared this before, but I had been sketching and drawing dandelion for probably 6 months or so. And and there she was in my lawn. My lawn is covered with dandelions. I had 3 young kids. I knew I was taking dandelion for my headaches as a liver detoxer and just to help, because I had been taking ibuprofen and painkillers like daily for years, 20 years. So I was working with it medicinally, and I just love its form. And teaching my kids that ritual that we have of blowing the seeds and making a wish, and I'm sharing all this and I'm drawing. Well, this day I was sort of sitting in my gardens and my kids are all running around, with the dandelion seed heads. And it was right when Frozen, the Disney movie, was out. And they're all singing, let it go, like at the top of their lungs. And I just had this like, whoa, like a full body realization, and that's the way our intuition works. It's felt in our body. It's not our minds that says, oh, now I hear this voice or I understand. And maybe we do. I think we're all clairaudient and, and clairvoyant and clairsentient and all these things, but it's our bodies that signal this wisdom. I've got chills all over my, like my, we just dismiss it. We dismiss it as pain or whatever else labels that we feel. But it was this whole body aha moment for me. And everything just went clink, 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 and fell into place. Everything that I knew about dandelion intellectually, everything that I was experiencing in my body at the time, this detoxifying, and the humor of my children, literally, like, do I have to shout this at the top of my lungs for you to understand the medicine? it all just came together in that singular moment. And at that point, I understood that their medicine is energetic, that it's felt, that we're in relationship, and that the medicine is awakened in us in our individual stories, like what's happening in our life. And isn't that what earth wisdom is? And isn't that how wisdom has been passed down for thousands and thousands of years through story?
Yeah.
And isn't that what it to be in circle with other women, to sit and share your stories, which is something that we haven't done for eons. We've been separated. We're in our own little homes. We don't gather with others and share our stories, real stories from our heart, and listen and witness each other. We're all, so, to me, it brought everything together. It just was this lightning moment. And so then, I had probably 2 years of working with these flowers. I didn't realize I was making a deck until I was working with hellebore, which wasn't in my garden at the time. Hellebore empowerment. And I was down in Boston. Yeah, there she is. And it was winter. Hellebore, Lenten rose, they bloom really early. And they were at this museum that I was visiting, had an inner courtyard that was covered. So it was like February or March, but it was like a little greenhouse, this inner courtyard. And I just spent the day, like, she captured my heart. And I'm just sketching and drawing and, and feeling in my body. And then, I'm reading what other people maybe have written about hellebore. And it just was like, oh my goodness, I know what I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be making this deck. I'm supposed to be sharing this story. And then, I'm on my social media, and there's this other woman called Lisa who had made a plant oracle deck. And it's like, so the universe it's like all these little signs and synchronicities that helps you to understand your own experience and your story. And we're so supported in this way.
It's so funny because, when we were talking before we pressed recording, like when something gets into your awareness, suddenly it's like domino effect. Like you see it everywhere. You see this little signs and everything just comes like, yeah.
Yes, and that's exactly how the flowers and the universe, it's all energy, and it's all working in that way. So then I'm like, wow, gosh, I'm really connecting with hellebore right now. And I'm looking around at what's happening in my life, and I'm putting the pieces together, that this is the medicine of hellebore. This is the energy of hellebore. This is how I understand her. This is what she's bringing to me at this moment. And then I knew I was creating this deck.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was supposed to be sharing my story as I did it, because I just knew it, and I had to trust that and be open to that. And so I started sharing my story on Instagram, like the creation of the deck. Right when I started, I was like, okay, I'm going to share my process right here. And so then when I finally was working with periwinkle, which wasn't on my list, I had my list, I had my intellectual list. This is the 48 flowers that I was going to put in this deck. And, I don't think even half of those flowers actually made it into the deck, because the flowers like, no, you're not in control of this.
Yeah. Sorry for plants.
Right. And so the last flower that was in the deck is periwinkle, which is, yes, exactly. It's a ground cover. It grows thickly through the woods around my house, Vinca minor. And it was early spring. Again, the snow is on the ground, and it was blooming profusely early. Got my attention, and I started to sketch and learn more, and, kind of did a little pilfering of some cuttings and brought it back to my garden, and began this relationship with periwinkle. And through my creating of the art for that and seeing what's going on in my life, I got the message, no, it's time. This is it. This is the last one. Periwinkle is a vine. She was like, this is where you need to tie up this process and start, and start the next chapter. You've completed the spiral. It's time to move forward onto the next chapter. It's time to self-publish, all these kinds of things. And by that time I had, I don't know, not very many followers, maybe 300 or 400 followers on Instagram. And I said, I want to do this deck. And I put up a page on my website, and I was able to get 100 people to in the pre-sale, which was enough for me to order 500 decks from
Yeah.
my local printer. And you know, so it felt right. It didn't feel overwhelming. Oh my gosh, I got to do this Kickstarter, which feels stressful. I've got to do what they've done and that person's done and that person's done. Right. Resonance, heart, you know,
Yeah.
following my own heart. And so I did. And that's where that was 2016. And I continue to work with these flowers deeply, deeply, more and more deeply. I don't know. I get the question, and I know you had said this before we got online, you know, there's going to be an expansion pack or another one.
Yes, we want
And I
to.
don't feel that right now. I don't feel that at all, because for me, you know, it's like having friends. All right. How many friends can you be in relationship with?
66.
I don't know. I find it hard more than 2 or 3 to maintain a friendship with 2 or 3 people you know, and with my kids, a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah,
And
because
so
I told you, I spoke to my friend Liz, and she's like, ask Lisa if she's thinking of
I'm gonna do
extension
more.
pack, because she loves Angelica. She's like
Yes.
whenever I think of Angelica, I always think of her. And she's
Yeah.
also like loves gardens, and just, yeah, I might get her on interview as well, just to like speak about her love for herbals and plants.
Yes.
But
Yes.
she loves your deck, and actually, she was, I think, one of the second person which I saw using your deck, and I was like, oh wow, it's like beautiful, because I have to say, like, the art, you know, it's kind of like simple, right? It's a flower, and that's it. But it's just so soulful. Like, it feels intimate. It feels intimate, and it feels very connected. And I think when I look at it, I can feel it, like
Yes,
the
and that's
connection.
art. That's the energy of art, and that's the energy
Yeah.
of flowers. They all have a vibration and energy. And so, you know, some people will be resonant, like you pulled up, you know, pansy there. Some people are going to resonate with this art, and some people aren't. This is the way art communicates with us. You go to an art gallery, and you're going to walk past some, and others are going to pull you right in. And so, for me, that's me sharing my essence combined with the flower essence, because when I'm painting these flowers, I'm feeling the flower. I can become the flower if you like, you know. I mean, it sounds hokey, but I feel it in my body. And you know, and part of what the plants have taught me is this remembering of the superpower that is our imagination. That's everything right now. And that's where I'm moving now, is into this, like, this deep understanding of, you know, of our thoughts and our words and our and our actions as our essence being, you know, released into the world, dandelion, right?
Yeah.
and and
Let it
so
go.
yes, exactly, let it go. And this, so the process of creating this deck is, it's helped me to hone, to let go of all these labels and stories and beliefs around who I am and what is my purest essence. And here I am working with daffodil right now, which is like encouraging me to be who I am, to be my purest essence. And that's my purpose. That's what I'm here to do. It's found through play, as we've already talked about. It's found through our own creative imagination. And everybody, every single person on this planet has this capacity to, has their own essence and their own capacity to connect in with that essence. And
So, I'm sorry. So while we're here, Lisa, before we go further, like, how would you, because you said you're working with daffodil now, so maybe we can like jump into, because as I said, I'm a tarot channel, so we
yes,
want to say something for people maybe who have the deck or who want to get the deck. How can you suggest working with the cards, right? Because like, what do you do? Like a spread? Do you pull one card and create a relationship? Like how, like with daffodil, what do you do? Like you pull a card, or how does it
there's
work?
many answers to that one. First of all, I encourage people to figure it out on their own. And people ask me to do readings. I'm like, no, I can't do a reading for you. I can only do it for myself.
Yes.
I deeply believe that these cards, like this energy piece, that they are mirrors for us, just as all of nature is a mirror for us. The way that I use the cards, the way that I am in relationship with them is is slow and gentle and every day, and it's a deepening every, so I'm playing, and through my play I'm finding rituals that work for me, and I'm tending myself. This is the original book was called Tending the Garden of Your Soul. They took that away when they created that. So the way I share to people to use this is as a slow, as you would tend a garden. It's like, it's a daily practice, and our learning and our growth is a daily thing, and we're never done. We're never done. And so for me, I believe, I feel like taking a deep breath, even creating presence and grounding, and choosing a card on a daily basis, just, or when you feel called to,
Yeah.
is the way to work with this deck that's most potent, because you're going to pick a card that is most what you need to hear at that moment, and what you need to be reminded of, because you already know it, right? You already know it, and it's most resonant with whatever's happening in your life right now. And then I say to people, well, put it somewhere where you're going to see it for that day. Like you're being gifted a bouquet of flowers with this deck. You're getting, and first of all, how flowers make us feel, right? We know that they elevate the energy.
Yeah, you smile. Yeah.
Right, because they can. And why do they do that? Because they speak to our hearts. They bring us right into our heart space. So you pick your card for that day. It's directly connecting to your heart. It's the medicine that you need right then, whether it's just in the card, the art, the words, your relationship already with that flower, whether it's a medicinal and you want to make tea out of it or take it as an essence, any of those qualities, but you put it somewhere where you're going to see that. And this is how we grow, is by bringing into our conscious awareness that which we are reading, seeing, feeling, understanding. So for me, when I pick the card and I put it like on my altar every day, and then I go about my day, but in the back of my mind, or here I have zinnia on my hand,
Your tattoos, they
yeah, this
awesome.
is one of my temporary tattoos. It's getting a little crunchy because it's been on my hand a week now, but I then pay attention. So, there's a shamanic journey work where you go into an altered state of consciousness. For me, it's like my whole life is an altered state of consciousness. Living is an altered state of consciousness. Here we are in this, right? And I'm like, okay, so my intention is to understand this plant more, understand myself more. And now I'm just going to be aware. And I think maybe that's the artist in me that is just paying attention, looking at the world around me, paying attention to what I experience.
Yeah.
And then making those connections, just like that dandelion story. And then you'll find, like, in that day, or maybe you leave that card up for a week, or maybe I now work with them for a whole moon cycle. You'll have these series of aha moments, or you'll begin to, and then you have to then there's a whole nother layer, because you have to start trusting that.
Do you write it down?
Yes, I do. That's part of my process. I created a daily practice journal, which you can see on my website, whether you're working with this deck or any deck.
Yeah.
I encourage you to deepen into your relationship with, like, have a favorite. I mean, everyone has a favorite deck, but have deepen into I have many, many decks, but there's only 3 that I work with on a daily basis.
Which ones?
So I work with mine.
Yeah.
I work with the Sacred Creators Oracle, which was also an indie deck by Chris and Donnelly. Now it's a mass market through Hay House, I think. And then I work with the Wisdom of the Oracle, which is a Colette Baron Reed one, which was one of my first decks. And it's like, it's an old friend. Yeah. So those are the 3 that I work with. And I work with those 3 together on a weekly basis, but my deck is the one I work with on a daily basis. I'm still working with it. I'm still learning. And so, yeah,
sorry, Lisa, I'm like butting it, but I wanted to say to people also that, like, right now you also offer those flower essences which you
Yes,
created with Deb Soul. It's that's how you
yes,
pronounce her surname.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, Deb Soul, and you can purchase the essences on Deb's website or on your website. And she created the essences, and you provided the artwork for the bottles,
Yes,
right?
yes, because the artwork contains the vibration as well as
Yeah,
the actual medicine. And it's, flower essences are purely vibrational medicine. It's homeopathy is much more popular in Europe than it is here, but it's vibrational medicine. That's what we're working with. And our bodies are so dense, and so sometimes we need to work with more physical medicine, which for me is the tincture or the tea, the actual physical. It's got chemical constituents in it. It has, if you make a tea from dandelion, it's root, it's a different, it's touching you on a different level.
yeah,
It's touching your physical body.
touching the
Well,
body.
then if you use the essence, the flower essence, it's touching your emotional body and your vibrational body. And then you can also connect with the plant spirits just with your intention and your imagination. You're that powerful. You can call them in that way. So putting the card out on your altar, you are bringing in that energy, and it's more subtle. It's more subtle, but that's where we have to be fully present in every moment to start to see the connections with how life is serving us up this understanding
Yeah,
and this
because I thought
medicine.
this is such a fascinating idea, to have an essence. And there is 10, 20 essences?
There's 18. There's two
18.
sets. Yeah, two
18.
sets of nine, and the first one was the Unity Essence collection, and now we have the Pollinator Essence collection. And so there's a story. There's a story in there, and it's leading us. The plants are leading us on this story of self-discovery and understanding, and so so I created the words for it and the art for it. And Deb is she's such a flower fairy, and she's such an incredible herbalist and medicine woman, and she created the actual essences, and it's
Yeah.
so mindful, the way that she did it. And so I feel like it's the medicine of the future. I mean, it's now is the future. Now we need this. Now we're starting to realize that we're much more than just flesh and bones, right? Where there's so much more to us
Yeah, now
than
it's like a subject you can actually talk to most of
right.
the people with. Some people might
Well,
still be
maybe
like,
my family will still look at me like I have three heads, but
but it's something that like now you can say, well, it's proven, it's, science has proven it. It's not something, it's not just you inventing it or you have to believe in it. You can actually
right.
read it about physics, and maybe if somebody has to have a proof, well, there is a proof really. But I'm waiting for those essences. As I told you, like my friend sent them to me. They in customs. Please, dear customs, just let them go. They
They
here
will
to
come.
like
They will
I
come in.
really
They will
I
come in
started making
spring.
my own essences as well, like during this, I don't know if you know about astrology a little bit, but like there was this Neptune and Jupiter conjunction a couple of months back. I thought it was maybe April or something like this. And I started having those dreams. Like I studied bug flowers at some point when I lived in Australia, Australian bush flowers. It was always in my radar. Like I love this stuff. And I had like, Australian bush flowers cards as well, because that's what they have there. And somebody just came once. I was working in a health food shop. That was actually like now when I just kind of connected the dots. Somebody just came into the shop. It was just before Christmas. I was by myself, like just looking, like closing up in maybe an hour. And somebody just came in, bought something, and I was signed up from the shop for the bushflower essence course, and I had this huge like folder with like information, and I was going through it. And when this person was paying, they saw this like was lying on the counter, and they left, and they came back like 2 minutes later and gave me the cards, like the Australian bushflower cards as a gift. I was like, oh, thanks. I was like, wow, that's so awesome. So yeah, it was just like fascinating, and it's really hard to buy those essences in Poland where I live, but I when I lived in Australia for 10 years, that was my closest, because that was what was around. And I really believe that like plants that grow around you have probably the strongest in some way effect
Absolutely.
on you, because that you're in connection with them. You can build
Yeah,
relationship with
absolutely.
them. I mean, I still believe that you can build a relationship with like a spirit of the plant. Like I still love eucalyptus, which doesn't grow in Poland, you know, and I'm like sometimes miss some plants from Australia. Like I had a connection with them, so maybe it's also different. But through like connecting to the spirit of the plant or spirit of the stone, or I think you can still do it. If you love a plant, go for it, you know. You don't probably have to have it around, but
You don't. I mean, and you can, I mean, I might be going out on a limb here, but I feel like you can make essences from anything. You can make essences of experiences. You could, you could say, okay, this is my wedding day, and here is my sacred spring water, and I'm just going to put this on my, by my wedding cake, and I'm going to infuse this energy of this day into this water and forever hold it in there. You can make an essence from each of these cards. And I do that frequently. We've seen the work of Yasurumoto, with the water, and it's, so you can just take I have a beautiful wine glass that's stemless, and I just love it. And sometimes I put that with spring water right on top of the card. Yeah, literally. And or maybe it's a full moon, it's a time, and I make it up as I go along. Seriously, make it up as you go along. This is your superpower, your imagination. This is bringing you back to the creative child that you are, the child of the universe. And then I have this essence when it's ready, when my heart says it's ready, and then I can drink it. I
yeah,
can drink
I
it.
love
I
that.
want to. And you can do that with anything. You can do that with anything. So it's all about your intention. For me, it's all about our intention.
Yeah.
And, these rituals that we create, I didn't realize how many rituals I had that were creating very painful circumstances in my life. That was what dandelion helped me let go of, like, oh, this ritual of thinking that I'm not good enough, or and these are mantras that are in your head and you're just saying them over and over again. And, oh, I should do this. I should do this. I have to do that. These are these, and we literally are creating these prisons for ourselves. So this is where my work is going now, because it's like, I need to share this understanding. I've been, I went from, I love it. It's Rose. Rose is what's coming in my heart. There's so much suffering in this world. There's so much suffering. Yeah.
It was just there.
Rose. Yeah. And Rose is so prevalent right now too, for everybody. There's so much suffering in the world. And way back when I started working with Rose, she said, let go of suffering so that there is room for the joy. There's so many of us have so much suffering that we don't have the room for the joy. And a good deal of the suffering, and this is no way, like, no judgment on all the horrible things that are happening in your life. It's no judgment of that. We need to let go of that story. We need to stop judging life, judging each other, judging stories. But we create so much of our own suffering through our judgment. And
Because
I've done
they're
this for
just so
myself.
limited, right? Our
Right.
judgments are so limited.
They are so limited, and they're restricted by our beliefs and
And
our
sometimes
stories.
collective culture also, it's like this, I
All
have
of
this sense
it.
like this, all these judgments are like floating, and depending on how much in touch you are with yourself, like, and sometimes when you fall out of this alignment, like you just like tap in like you're able to tap into any of them. So sometimes you go off and you're like, yeah, full of suffering or victimhood or something, and other times
All
you
of that.
you know yeah.
And our culture waters these stories of suffering and victimhood, and disempowering stories of, like, well, who's to blame for your pain?
Yeah,
And that's so supremely disempowering.
yeah.
And we can't heal it if we can't accept responsibility for it. And to me, that's what I'm doing in my own life. That's what I'm accepting responsibility for my own life and my own experience of my life and my stories. And And some days that's really hard. and I'm in it, and I'm in the suffering of it, and I'm in the pain. And sometimes I'm in the pain and I'm separated from it. And I remember, like, last year sometime I was having a really serious headache episode. And I'm like laying in there, and you know how you clench when you're in pain and you become more tense. And I suddenly stepped out of myself, and I was watching myself, like, just like going back into this old pattern, this old tenseness. And, oh, what have I done? Did I eat too much sugar? What did I do wrong? Da, 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 all these kinds of things. And for some reason, I was able to step out of it. And I'm like, I'm not my pain. I'm not this story. And I felt that I had to move with it. Like, I just had to sway. And I sat up in bed and I just started swaying with the pain, like you do when you're in childbirth. We roll, we flow with the waves of pain that we're experiencing, and we know it's not forever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even death releases us from that pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know it's not forever. Can we just allow ourselves to experience what we're experiencing? And that takes me back to the flowers, because, and this idea of judgment, that the flowers are judging us, like they're our favorites and all that. This is, they just love us for who we are, and I feel like the universe loves us for who we are and wherever we're at. And how can we support each other to move through the pain? Not by trying to fix each other, but just by witnessing and honoring each other's experience.
Yeah. I have to read
This is what I'm
something.
here. Yeah.
Sorry, Lisa, I jumped in again, but I was just reading this before, I don't know, just today at some point. Like, it was on my iPhone. I was trying to
Yes.
copy something, paste and copy from my notes, and this was just there. And I wrote here that I was listening to a conversation between Jungian analysts Marion Woodman and Robert Johnson about how dangerous sentimentality is and how it replaces genuine feeling. And Robert Johnson quoted Jack Sanford saying that God loves your shadow more than he loves your ego. So good, so true. What is closest to God is our authenticity, not some superficial moral piety that we put on to please some idealized, punishing, parental, godlike figure, which is actually closer to our ego than to God itself, or divine, whatever.
Yeah.
I thought like that's exactly what sums up also this whole, like, how we all kind of subscribe to this. It should be like, I don't know, as if there was this invisible, like a level where we have to reach the norm, invisible norm, that we somehow feel like we have to be there to, I don't know, be accepted, be loved, be fine, with ourselves. And it's just so crazy when you actually like stop and think about it. It's like, it's the same about sex. It's the same about, I don't know, couple and relationships and how much sex you should have. And if you don't have that much, then something is wrong with you. And, when you work with people, you know that this is fucking not true. Like, whatever the norm is, everybody's getting it. Nobody's doing it. Everybody feels bad of not doing it. And I'm like, maybe we shouldn't be doing it. Like, don't worry about it. Like, why do we have to have sex 3 times a week to point back that, like, your relationship works well? Like, where is it coming from? Like, it's so crazy.
Well, yeah, this is like this is our cultural programming. This is, and we all feed into it. And because we all want to belong. It's like it's just this extreme exploitation of our purest self that wants to be loved and wants to be seen and wants to belong.
Yeah.
I mean, those are my pain. Right. And those are my pain points. Those are your pain points.
Yeah.
And here I went to school for marketing, right? That was like, I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I went to school for marketing, because I saw how the system works to push on everybody's pain points, because then you'll buy something to make you feel better, or you'll pursue something outside of yourself to help you feel better, whether it's, likes on your social media, or it's, whatever it is, or if it's, sugar, whatever we do. It's outside of ourselves to feel better. And I feel like what I'm remembering is that I have everything that I need in me, in my own life and in my own knowing, to live a happy, joyful life, a life of purpose. That doesn't mean it's easy. That doesn't mean that everything is rainbows and unicorns and glitter.
Yeah.
It's embracing all of it, that you as a human, like, and just like, this is what nature shows us, that there's cycles, that we are deeply connected to all of them. We are them. And that we go through cycles of growth and expansion, and we go through cycles of letting go and dying. And that when we can see ourselves in this cycle, all of our experiences, whether we judge them good or bad, happy or sad, they become the soil for our own growth, the next season of growth. And we've forgotten as a culture, and this is where I started that book, we've forgotten as a culture that we need these periods of fallow and inner and dark and winter and rest, all these qualities that are divinely feminine. And that are, it's about death too. We need that in order to create the conditions for the next cycle of growth. And we've forgotten that we're in this cycle of perpetual growth. Yeah. And it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable in our own lives, individual lives. It's not sustainable in the whole world.
Yeah, it makes us unhappy, stressed out. We're destroying nature by doing it.
We are, because we feel like we're separate from it, and we're not. Yeah. We're not separate. I mean, yeah, we can turn on a light. We don't need the sun. We can light a candle. We don't need the sun. We can eat a strawberry in winter. We can do all those things.
Yeah. That's what makes me think sometimes, on Poland, when we were like the communist country and we had nothing in shops, like you couldn't buy anything like this in winter. We were going on sauerkraut and root vegetables, anything that could actually naturally be eaten then, because you can, like, it has this shelf life which is longer if you keep it in a cold place. But when you came in spring into the like veggie shop, it smelled. I've never smelled this anymore. The fresh parsley and fresh spring onion and fresh dill, or like everything was just organic and normal and like how it should be. Like, whereas now you like everything looks so beautiful, but it seems like it has nothing of substance, just
right.
So
I think about that a lot. I think that's, for me, that's like a guidepost for my whole life. That's where I got into the herbs, all of that, because it's not, it's inorganic or organic, and it's not a judgment of inorganic. And when I say inorganic, I mean like just not natural, that we can force things in different time, but how it made me feel like it was like I had to be on all the time. I have to be present. I have to be doing all the time. And if I take some time to rest, well, that's seen as being lazy.
Yeah, it's guilty. It's guilt then. You're wasting your time.
You feel guilty.
You're wasting.
Yeah, wasting your time. But then I realized, well, if I don't work 8 hours a day and I only work 4 hours a day, then my work is so much more vibrant, and I'm not, so it's just like all these kind of concepts that we know, we feel it in our body. Or when we feel tired, can you rest? Can you just rest when you're tired? No. When your head hurts, can you just stop? Yeah. Can you just stop for a moment and listen? And so I feel like that's the medicine of working deeply with the flowers, with nature, with this deck, with whatever tools you need. And then not, for me, it's like, putting together a toolkit, like the things that make you feel good, the things that support and nourish you. And those are changing always. Like in the winter, something, I like soups and heavy. I don't like that in the summer. So, we're always changing, and, the weather's always changing, and, and, and nature shows me that it's like that everything is always changing. It's always changing. We cannot control it. There's dandelion again. We cannot control life, but we can come back into the flow of it, the organic flow of it. And that's the single gift that I want. That's the seed. That's my intention for sharing this work, because that's what I've done. That's what I've done in my own life, is to come back into the flow of life. And I continue to surrender to it. And it's like, it is a surrendering. It is a letting go, over and over and over again. We can't control it.
Remembering.
Yes. And we're all remembering it. And we all have, we're all earth, every single, whether it's postures, ancient postures, it's like where you live, it's like your body is the earth. And as such, you hold this wisdom in your body, and when we start to share our stories without judgment, when we just share our experiences, we're going to remember this. We're going to remember these. We're going to remember our connections. We're going to remember that we're all children of this planet. But until we can share authentically our stories without the layers, that it's like the cloud and cover the unique essences that we each are. And we're all unique. We all have something to give this world. We all have something when we're in our unique, not trying to be somebody else.
Comparing ourselves, right?
Yeah, comparing ourselves, fear of missing out. I mean, all these stories I've lived, I feel, and I still do.
Yeah.
Because it's an old pattern. But now, through this daily process, this daily tending, I recognize those patterns much quicker in myself. I recognize those thoughts. I recognize when I'm saying something that I'm no longer aligned with. And it's pulling me out of coherence with my heart.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this is already half of the success, right? When you're actually aware of it, and you can still do it, but you catch it faster. And like when you don't jump into this old judgy, because then it's like this vicious circle. You just see it and you go, oops, I did it again.
Yeah.
But
I think there's a song about
to let go of that, of this hold of it.
This control.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And again, and this is dandelion medicine for all of us. Yeah, all of us. Yeah. We all need this. We all need to release and let go of all these constructs of what we think life is, what it should be. I mean, and that's my, and then that was a big part of my letting this go into the mass market, was because I want that. That's the intention I want to plant, the seed that I want to plant in the hearts of those that find this deck, and the universe will put it in front of people that need it or resonate with it. And I deeply trust that. And I've let her go. I've let her go.
Let it go. So I think we're going to wrap it up, because it's been like a long time. I hope, for people who love the subject, I hope this is going, doesn't matter. Grab a cuppa, guys, and I hope, just listen to us. And I pulled us a card collectively. That's what I drew. Campanula. I don't know. Oh, do I know this plant? I don't know if alignment. Any story about that? Do you remember anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's those bells, it's those little bell flowers, and there's a ton of different campanula species. They grow all over the world. I have at least 3 varieties in my garden of campanulas, but to me they're little bells, and it's paying attention to our thoughts and our words and our actions are out of alignment or in alignment with our heart. So that's the message from that, and that it's a deeply empowering message. When I pull that card, it helps me to pay attention. Like, am I thinking thoughts that are in alignment with my heart? What are my mantras that I'm telling myself right now? What are the words that I'm saying? What am I doing? And is that in alignment with my heart's knowing, what I've remembered and what's true for me?
Yeah, when you said bells, I just keep hearing this like ding ding, like a wake up call, just a little bit like,
Yes, yes, yes,
yes.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do this, people. We can do this. We can do
So I
this.
close with your own words, Lisa.
Yes,
Focus on all that you have achieved instead of dwelling on all there is yet to do. Be well, be happy.
yes.
To all
Yay.
of us.
Thank you,
Beautiful
Jose.
message. Thank you so much, Lisa, for joining in and sharing about the plants and flowers. I'm loving this deck, and I'm really inspired also recently to like just work with the plants and connect with them and make friends with them, through oils, essences, like anything, like tinctures, herbal teas, and anything I can like kind of feel drawn to. And thank you so much for making this. If you ever feel like extension pack, I think 66 friends is definitely not too much, not too many. So, we still want Angelica, St. John's wort, and some other plants. I'm sure you find some new friends, at some point, like we
St.
grow
John's
new
wort,
friends. Come.
St. John's wort is now in my garden. St. John's wort came last week.
Exactly.
So I know they're there. They're waiting for me to have the space.
Hello. Maybe that's exactly the little bell is going to go off at some point. Who knows? But thank you so much. It was lovely to meet you. Thank you everyone for watching. And I see you in another episode. Thank you, Lisa. See you,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye.